John Grimm, CEO, Smart Energy Council, Australia. Please, sir, welcome.
Well, congratulations first to the leadership of IRENA and the Indian Solar National Federation for this conversation. When I think about Agri PV, three things come to mind. The first is, imagine that you're in agriculture in India, in Australia, in Latin America, somewhere around the world. First you think, a solar PV installation is coming near my community. So you think, that's a positive thing. But then you think about it a little bit more, and you've seen all of those photographs of solar PV that dominate the landscape, and you think, crikey, that's a problem, because my farm is going to be left behind. And if you're a farmer, that's a problem. And if you're a community that relies on the production of the land, that's a problem. And so naturally, the anxiety rises. And it's very easy for those who oppose this technology to seize on that natural fear to actually undermine the social license of this movement. And that's why it's so important that all of us, because while we are specialists in Agri PV, we are few in number. 7 billion people in the world, right? They have not heard the story. They have not seen the examples. And so it's absolutely critical that we tell stories relevant to our communities, to our location, to reduce the anxiety, to demonstrate the cohabitation, the multi-benefits that come from a coordinated approach. And we must tell stories that are relevant to our communities. In Australia, a big part of that story is, in a very hot, arid land, when you have solar PV and you have sheep underneath, they actually have shade for the first time in their lives, actually improves the production of the grazing capacity in that land. Now that's a very Australian story, but we need to tell a German story and a Brazilian story and a Japanese story and a Chinese story. And so really critical. That's the first thing, is sort of the social license. Second thing that comes to mind, the applications of Agri PV are limitless, really very fantastic, because you can cut the wire, right? You can have distributed energy in a place that you've never had distributed energy in before. So in a place like Australia, what we're seeing is things like off-grid, PV-driven water heating, and using that water at 86 degrees for sterilising in a dairy farm, right? The law says 86 degrees. We can do that without needing to put the grid infrastructure in, or tapping in, even if the grid is there, might be 200 metres or 5 kilometres away, right? Very expensive to bring that infrastructure. So all of a sudden, you empower people everywhere to access to that energy source, to harness it in lots of different ways. And of course, the gentlemen here are experts in all of those applications, but also incumbent on us to tell those positive stories. The third thing that I think about is the applications for solar beyond the direct applications. So thinking laterally. So my encouragement to our previous speaker was, when we define agri-solar, let's not limit ourselves too much. Of course, we can't, not everything, but let's be creative in how we apply it. Two examples. I went to the hall at the top of the hill, the demonstration hall. They have the technology, and an Indian company has invented, diesel's a big problem, very expensive and very polluting, right? So those applications. But let me give you one more. How about we harness the power of solar PV to draw emissions out of the agriculture sector? And I'm particularly talking about fertiliser. India depends on fertiliser for your agricultural sector. Imagine if we took 0.5% of India's agriculture fertiliser needs. Fertiliser is made from ammonia. Ammonia and fertiliser come from fossil gas. Huge emissions for creating fertiliser. What if we produce, with solar PV, renewable hydrogen, add nitrogen from the atmosphere and create renewable ammonia, And all of a sudden, solar PV is pulling emissions out of an area that is very hard to abate, right? And we could use that. India could stand up and say, we'll put up half of 1%. Australia could say, well, we'll put up 1% or 3%, right? And other countries can join. That would provide an offtake agreement which would be of such magnitude that it would underpin the development of a renewable hydrogen industry and actually do amazing things for agriculture. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for the opportunity to present.
Thank you, John. Thank you so much. And unfortunately, John has to also leave and catch his flight. But thank you so much for coming to the session on this and accepting our invitation. Thank you, John. Thank you so much.